right?
I'll put the things on the
You
thing.
put the things on the things in the book with the thing. All right. Yeah. We're going to learn some Torah today, and we're going to be learning back what we were discussing yesterday, but a little bit more as well. Okay? We're going to go back into some of the spooky stuff. All right? Yeah. You ready to go?
Co-pilot is ready.
Your co-pilot is ready. Good. Now, I want to mention to you, yesterday we began a new piece of the Gemara, which has a little bit about Pesach, which is the Talmud that we're learning with Pesachim, so it's a little bit about that. However, I want to let you know that we will go straight into the spooky stuff after we speak a little bit about the Pesach stuff. We're going to go into the spooky stuff, and that's that. Huh? No, we're going to start from the beginning from this piece. We did mention it.
Fluctuations in the.
Yeah, we did mention it briefly at the end of the class yesterday. However, we're going to start from that part. All right? We mentioned. Yeah. We mentioned in the Mishnah that even a pauper who cannot afford food to put in their mouths and is going to go to the emergency fund of the town called the Tamchoy, which was an emergency fund that existed throughout the generations. Every Jewish community, they had a Tamchoy. And a Tamchoy was an emergency fund for those people that literally did not have food for the day. And this was like the super emergency. In order to take food from the emergency fund, you could not have food for a day. I mean, if you had enough food to feed yourself for that day, you couldn't take from this fund because this was a super emergency fund that was made for literally people who were going to starve to death. It was like a super emergency fund called the Tamchoy. No, I'm serious. No, it's not Chassid. This is what it was for. If the guy did not have food to eat that day, they would give him food. If the guy had enough food to eat for that day, they would not give him food. However, the Mishnah says that when it comes to Pesach, this emergency fund still must give every individual 4 cups of wine because they need to drink 4 cups of wine on the night of the Seder. And therefore, this emergency fund is one of the exceptions. The Gemara starts out by asking Pshita. Pshita means simple, means Reis loquitur. You know what that means? Reis ipska loquitur. Yeah, you know what that is? Your father's a lawyer? Your dad's a lawyer?
Yeah.
Is he? No, because if you have a lawyer dad, then you know Reis ipska loquitur means. Yeah, you never heard that word before?
It's good to be racist.
Even a non-court lawyer should know what Reis ipska loquitur means. All right? I want you to call your dad today. You say you learned in the Gemara a word called Reis ipska loquitur. Reis ips, I don't remember how to do it. Look it up. Look it up. No, it actually means it's obvious. Reis ipska loquitur. Right? Should we look it up online? I forgot exactly how to say it, but I will. Hold on a second. Where am I?
Stop it.
Where am I? Oh, we're going to find Reis ipska loquitur. We're trying to look this up. You ever heard of that terminology? Who's this guy? Oh, Baruch Hashem. Shalom Aleichem is back in town. Ipska loquitur.
Yeah, it's the castle. Welcome, this is the Rebbe's army here. This is the Rebbe's.
Reis ipsa loquitur. Reis ipsa loquitur. In other words, pshita. Pshita. So if you want to learn, I want you to call your dad and tell him that, and he'll be very proud of me. Anyways, pshita is essentially Reis ipsa loquitur. Anyways, let's continue. Hello, how are you? I know you're trying to hide from me, but I even recognized you while you're facing that way. Huh? Thanks for coming. Nice to see you again.
Can't believe it.
Beautiful.
No one deserves more than that.
The students of Torah deserve the best place, and because Rabbi Pasternak is facilitating that, then obviously he deserves to have such a ability. Huh? Yeah, I came to Tzvas, yeah. Anyways, let's continue in the Gemara. Pshita means res ipsqua loquitur, which basically means it seems obvious. It seems obvious that since a Jew is required to drink 4 cups of wine, if he doesn't have those 4 cups of wine, it seems obvious that the emergency fund would be responsible to supply it. Why did the Mishnah even bother telling you this? So the Gemara says, Loi nitzcha el afilu Rabbi Akiva. The reason is because it needs to teach you that even Rabbi Akiva would admit to this fact, because it says the Omar that he says Ashay Shabbat chachol v'al titztarich labris. You should make your Sabbath mundane and not require help from other people. Meaning you should try your best not to be a person that takes freebies, handouts. So you might think that since a person should better mundane their Sabbath than to take a handout, you might think the same thing is mundane your Passover Seder and don't take a handout for wine. Says the Gemara that the Mishnah is trying to teach you, no, because of the necessity of the miracle. Therefore, they admit that this is the way it needs to be. Yeah? Good. Now we're going to go on to something else. Tanad ve'Eliyahu. It was taught in the house of Elijah. Afa pisha Amar Rabbi Akiva. Even though Rabbi Akiva says, "Asay Shabbat chovat tzarich labriis," abaloizahu davar muad b'seich beisei. Even though he tells you that better make your Sabbath mundane, meaning that don't go beg for handouts to make your Sabbath extra exciting. Better have your Sabbath less exciting than to ask for handouts. Nevertheless, you must add something in your house for your Shabbat meal. Meaning it doesn't have to be something big. Let's just say this guy normally eats 1 slice of bread every day. He can't afford more than 1 slice of bread. He should eat maybe a slice and a quarter of bread. So he adds something for Shabbat. It's more of a symbolic addition for Shabbat. My Ninu asked the Gemara, what should a person add for Shabbat? Omar Rabbi Kopel says, Rabbi Kopel, kosa da harnisa. Kosa da harnisa is a cup. I believe it's a cup of a certain type of fish. I'm sneezing. Why am I sneezing? Yeah, it says that it's actually a fried fish. They would fry fish with flour. Yeah, apparently it was a really cheap. Apparently it was a very cheap food that you'd have. It's like these small fish, maybe like sardines or whatever it is. They would fry it.
It's delicious, actually.
Yeah.
I thought we were not allowed to bring fish that is not befitting for a kid's table.
What are you talking about? Who said that?
No? Like that's what they start saying.
Actually, I want some right now.
I don't know what you're talking about. Again, obviously you should try to serve your best. Obviously, if you have the gelt, you try to serve the best. Here we're talking about a guy that doesn't necessarily have the money. So he should add, even though he doesn't, he should not be asking for handouts to make his Shabbat extra special, but he should be adding something. He should push himself to add a little bit for his Shabbat meal. Yeah. As it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Rabbi Yehuda the son of Beseira Omer, he says, "Heavy az kanomar v'kal kanesh rotz katzvi v'gibor gari lasis ritzen avicha shebashamayim." It says you should be light like a leopard, which means swift like a leopard, light like an eagle, run like a deer, and be fierce like a lion. Yeah, like that. Yeah, in order to do the will of God, which means, in other words, you should push yourself as much as you could to ensure that you have at least a little bit extra for Shabbat, even if it's extremely difficult for you, right? Good. Yeah. Hold on, I just need a very important thing. Somebody's in the middle of something.
Ooh, they allowed
All right, let's go.
They allowed us to we just got permission to repost into the Israel Chai Facebook group.
Oh,
Now we repost into there. So
good.
If you're part of the Israel Chai Facebook group, join the WhatsApp so you can become a Talmudist and join the New World Order.
Yeah,
Join the New
good.
World
Sorry.
Order right now.
Somebody was just in the middle of a court proceeding and they just needed very
You gotta do
important
what you gotta do.
information. Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways,
the QR code for the people in the
Oh.
Israel Chai group.
for all the people that want to join our WhatsApp group, we just have a QR code over there. And the QR code, if you click it, you can join our WhatsApp group. Yeah. Yeah, it's our WhatsApp group, etc. Good. Let's continue. We're actually going to get into some of the spooky stuff now. Once we brought up Rabbi Akiva, we're now going to bring some of the spookier teachings of Rabbi Akiva. You ready to handle this? You sure? Hold on tight. Hold on. Tanu Rabbanon, the Rabbanon teach, Shiva Dvarim Tziva Rabbi Akiva es Rabbi Yeshua Benoi. There were 7 things that Rabbi Akiva taught his child called Rabbi Yeshua. Yeah, he says, Bani, my son, al teishev begoiva shall ear. He said as follows, you should not be living, do not live in the height of a city. Why? It seems to be over here that the height of a city is where most people used to go back and forth. In other words, you shouldn't be in a place that is too public. People are constantly going back and forth. Yeah. No, so you should not, not that you shouldn't live there. It says you shouldn't sit there, the tishna, and teach Torah. Meaning, don't teach Torah in a place where there's a lot of people passing by. Why? It seems like they will disturb your students. Hence why many of our students come to our yeshiva, because we're in Tzfat. If you go to yeshiva in Yerushalayim, there's always people passing. There's all sorts of stuff going on, even though Jerusalem is a tremendously holy place. But if you want focus and you want to be not disturbed by so many potential distractions, right? You should definitely try to learn in Tzfat versus Yerushalayim. Yeah. Some people even will move to like these little farm towns. There's some yeshivas like in these farm towns, away from everybody, and that's where they start. Yeah. What?
If you're prepared
What's going to be peaceful?
No, but when we pray, we're facing south.
Yeah, learning with the cows.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
But you have to be prepared to sacrifice a little bit of the gashmiot for the rukniot.
Why is it a sacrifice? Well, you need people running around. If people are not running
I'm just
around.
saying, if you want parnasa and money is the most important thing to you, then maybe somewhere in the south of Israel where you have to pray north,
right,
would be better. But if you want,
you're saying in the south they make more money than in the north.
Yeah,
they do.
So I've heard it's hard to parnasa.
It's challenging.
You get wisdom, but
it's fun. Even when you make money, it's challenging, right? It's challenging to make money. It's challenging to keep money. It's challenging to get anybody to do work for you. Everything's a challenge here in Tzfat. How you doing? The only thing that's actually easier in Tzfat that I find is actually studying Torah.
Yeah.
For some reason, studying Torah in Tzfat is like the city of Torah.
That's good. I need all the help I can get.
And also to eat.
Yeah. What?
And also to eat.
To eat what?
Food.
To eat food is easy?
But maybe if you got
easier than where? Easier than you serious? Oh, you're saying to find kosher food?
Yeah. If you just need kosher, just come join the yeshiva and stay in the yeshiva.
That's it. That's it.
But maybe if you got a place in Yerushalayim and a place in Tzfat, and you split the time between them, then you can have a balance of.
Anyway, let's go back to the Talmud. We're getting a little bit distracted, right? We have our people online are sitting here watching us, and they're like, "What's going on? Why are you wasting our time?" Good. Let's go back. There's 7 things that it says he shouldn't do. Number 1, he should not sit in the high place of a city, which is a place where people are walking back and forth, and teach Torah. We shouldn't do that. Number 2, do not sit in do not live in a city whose heads are the wise Torah scholars, right? Right? You'll say, why? Wouldn't you want the Talmud Chacham to be the heads of the city?
They are too busy studying to govern properly.
Oh, so he says that if a guy's
hardcore statement.
yes, if a guy is a true Talmud Chacham, he's going to be so preoccupied with his study that he won't be able to properly focus on the needs of the city. In other words, do not hire a Talmud Chacham to run to be the mayor. Sorry, mayor. No Talmud Chacham allowed. Right? You got to be a tippish, or I don't know about a tippish, but you have to be you have to be focused on the job. Right? If you're focused on study, you're not focused on the job. He also says, do not come into your house suddenly. Right? You might startle, you might freak them out, and they go, ah! Right? No, that's what it says. Right? You should maybe knock on the door or walk in slowly so people kind of hear you. Right? It also says that some commentators say that also people might be doing something private. They might not be ready for you. Right? What's so funny? Why? Well, hold on a second. Why are they doing something private in my house?
That ain't right.
Yeah, that ain't right. What's going on there? But apparently, maybe.
Well, it is cute, but it's wrong.
Yeah. Kol shekein lebeis chaverecha, and this is, you shouldn't come into your house suddenly because you might startle people. How much more so in somebody else's house? You should make your presence known before you arrive. Right? Va'al timna. So that was number 3. Number 4, al timna min armin raglecha. Do not deprive yourself of shoes. It's very important to have shoes, and you should never be walking barefoot. You might ask some of these new age spiritual people, they say the exact opposite. They like walking barefoot because they say they're connected to the ground and they're feeling the vibrations, and I don't know what they think they're feeling, but they're nuts.
They're feeling the broken glass and the hookworms on their feet.
No,
Exactly.
Rabbi, it's actually very beneficial to walk without shoes if you have like a certain pain.
Yeah.
When I was in India, that's what I was told, to walk on barefoot, because some soles of the shoe can give you a bad, like,
So maybe you need a better
Oh,
sole.
barefoot shoe. That's what I use.
You use
Barefoot shoe?
flat padded.
Yeah, barefoot shoes.
Barefoot shoes.
But you want to layer.
Isn't that an oxymoron, barefoot shoes? One or the other.
It's healthy to
All right.
walk a bit.
Good. Anyways, a little bit, but again, I think it seems like when you're walking in public more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Number 5, hashkem ve'echol. You should get up and eat somewhat swiftly. You should eat your first meal. Yeah. Bakayitz mipnei achama. You should do this in the summer because of the heat. Ubachayrev mipnei atzina, and in the winter because of the cold. What does that have to do with anything?
Because in the summer,
I guess why? What it says over there gives you a reason in that commentary. Let's hear.
It's best to eat before it grows hot.
So you want to eat before it gets too hot, because once it gets too hot, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah. And in the winter, due to the strength, you will need to tolerate the cold.
Oh, and in the winter, it's going to get cold, and then you'll warm you up, and good. That's number 5.
Good.
Number 6, you should make your Sabbath mundane, which means don't make your Sabbath so fancy if you are doing it at the expense of the public, the expense of charity. Zayin, having mishtadel im adam shasham misachekek loy, and he says that you should always do business with somebody who seems to be in momentary luck. Because if somebody is a person who apparently there's a spiritual truth that people have certain, I don't want to call it luck, but there's certain mazel, which is it's a certain aura of success that comes and goes with people, right? So you could have a person who, this year is like his lucky year and everything's working for him, and then the next year, bop. So Rabbi Akiva says if you find somebody that they look like they're in their moment, right? They're in their, there's a word in English, they're in their zone. They're in their element. They're in their element. They're in their zone. Do business with that guy. Why? Because then maybe you can kind of suck out some of that luck and success that they have will come to you because you're working with them. Yeah. Those are the 7 things that Rabbi Akiva said. Comes Rav Papa, Amar Rav Papa, he says, Loi lemizban minei. He said you should be careful when we say you should do business with the guy who is in his luck, in his prime. We do not mean that you should buy things from him. Do not buy things from him, right? And do not sell things to him. Meaning you should be careful. If that guy's in his element, do not buy from him and do not sell from him. You know why? Because if you sell to him, your product is now going to go up because he has his luck and you're going to lose. And if you buy from him, as soon as you buy it, it might go down because right now, let's just say he has something that's a very popular and very in demand. You buy it from him, but the second it leaves him, it's out of the element and now it could crash. So you're going to buy from him and then it's going to crash. If you sell something to him, you might sell something to him and then it's going to go up and then you've just lost it, right? So he says, do not buy from this guy and do not sell from a guy who's in his element. Do not. Not buying, not selling. Don't. Right? The only thing that you should do is to make a partner deal with him, right? Become his partner. Do business together, right? Let's make a business together. Let's open a pizza shop together.
Your bad not going to average out with your bad mazel's not going to average out with his good mazel?
Apparently not. Apparently, if he's in his zone and he has his good mazel, if you're doing business with him, and therefore his success is tied into your success, then you get pulled up.
Wow.
Huh? The mazel nozzle. There you go.
What if you marry a wife with a good mazel?
But then you say Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way.
Look for a rich.
V'hashta de Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak Maidik Siv. And now, what is it that Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda said about what's written? It's written in Job, right? Did I say it right? Eoiv. Job. Yob. Is Yob or Bob? Job. It says in Job, Maise Yodav Berachta, the product of his hand is blessed, right? That anybody that took anything from Eoiv, meaning in a fair way, yeah, he was blessed. So here you see a little contradiction. It seems that from Job you can infer that even to buy and to sell from him, you will get a blessing from it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Even if you buy and sell. Again, Rav Papa says if you buy and sell, it could be that he's getting the gain off of your loss. However, in Job, it seems like no. The very fact that he's blessed, he gives out blessing. He's not taking away blessing. Meaning it's not like, that genie. They always say these stories about this genies. You ever hear the genie story?
Yeah,
you rub the lamp, and all of a sudden a genie pops out and gives you 3 wishes, right? And whatever you wish, it tries to twist your words and give you something horrible when you're asking. You ask for 100 pounds in England. You're in England. You ask for 100 pounds, and 100 pounds lands on your head and knocks you out. Right? You ask for.
Watch out for those blue
but I have a car, and a car comes and crashes into you, and you get a car. So that type of spooky genie concept may exist in Hollywood, but according to the Gemara over here, it doesn't really exist when it comes to mazel. Which means that if you're dealing with somebody that has a positive aura, right, a positive luck pattern, that luck pattern is even going to go to somebody that buys and sells something for him. It's not going to. The luck pattern is not going to be like a cheat pattern. Oh, you're going to sell it, and then all of a sudden it's going to crash, right? For example, somebody's in his element, and you buy his stock, and then 2 days later it crashes. No, is actually on the contrary. You buy the stock from him, and then it'll also go up. All right.
You're like buying a part of his mazel.
It's almost like the very fact that you're connecting with him, you're drawing some of his mazel to you as well. All right, good. Any questions? You could ask. By the way, online you're allowed to ask questions too.
Also, if you want,
Feel free.
to increase your mazel, you gotta maintain your brit. Because if you don't maintain your brit, you're losing all your mazel. No,
I don't know what you're talking
is
about.
that true? It's not true.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're learning. You're reading too much Breslov.
That is Breslov. That is from
very
yeah,
Breslov. Breslov, they're super. How should I say it? I don't want to say it in a mean way, but they're very
hardcore.
OCD. They're very compulsive about the guarding the bris, which is basically not masturbating, which they take as it is a sin, and it's spoken about also in Hasidic Chabad, but they mamish make it into like everything. It's like, that's it, this is it. By the way, it does say that if a person wastes their seeds, it could lead them to poverty. It could bring on negative energy. Yeah. As a matter of fact, this particular part of human nature is actually built for reproduction, but not just for reproduction. By the way, you can see in many places it's also made to make a bond between man and woman, so that they have a healthy relationship. It's actually both of them. So therefore, if a person is wasting their seed, which means they're using this tremendous energy for anything other than one of those two things, either to reproduce or to maintain a bond with their mate, right? If they waste the seed for any other reason, it's considered a extremely detrimental sin. And the Alter Rebbe writes, in some ways, it's even worse than having relations with a woman you're not allowed to have relations with. Yeah. Why? Because the Alter Rebbe writes that a person that does this, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything. They don't think that they're doing something wrong. However, the spiritual damage is immense. Right? And if you ask me from my, I wouldn't want to say from my experience, I would say more from my experience in dealing with this issue with various people, I could tell you that people that really struggle with this, very often they have a hard time getting into a relationship, because it's almost like I don't know why I'm even speaking about this, but there's actually a saying in America that the most sexual organ is your brain, right? And Kabbalistically, there's truth to that, because there's a very deep connection between your brain and that particular element of the human body, right? As a matter of fact, when a person meets a woman that they really like, very often they say, "Oh, I can't get her out of my brains," right? Why? Because there's a connection. Kabbalistically, there's a very big connection, and therefore, if a person releases seed without in not the proper way, what that does is it trains the person's brain to be selfish, right? Because it basically tells the person it's telling the person's own brain that you don't need to connect to someone else. You just need to connect to yourself, because you can provide all of your needs to yourself. You don't need somebody else. And therefore, it actually messes up the person's brain and makes them selfish, and it destroys them internally. And they're like chayas and they're ruach. Also, like it is. It's actually extremely. You'll see in many spiritual places, it's probably the most spiritually detrimental act a person could do, even in some ways even worse than having relations with the wrong person. Yeah. Anyways.
Also, some of the greatest champions in the history of like boxing and martial arts.
Yeah.
The greatest ones, they hold their seed like for months leading up to the championship fight. It's like a huge deal. Mike Tyson was big about that. His coach would tell him, he would tell him, not only are you not allowed to just like spill your seed, you're not allowed to be with a woman for like 2 months leading up to your fight.
That they had so much testosterone. Actually, as a matter of fact, later in his career, there was like the last few fights he fought, he actually lost. And they actually said no. He actually admitted. He said that he was with a woman. One time he was with a woman the night before, and it was like, that's it. He lost the next day. He had no strength. Yeah.
Oh, it's a serious business.
serious business. I don't know why we're talking about this, but yeah. Anyways, let's go. Anti-spritz.
When he came out of prison, have you seen that part? He was jacked.
All right, good. Good. Should we continue?
Yes, brother.
All right, let's continue. Chamisha Dvarim. There was 5 things, Siva Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, that he commanded Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, his student, to do. Keshahaya Chavosh Beveis Asurim, when Rabbi Akiva was in jail. Rabbi Akiva was actually in prison for a while. Yeah. Most of the good rabbis were put in jail. The Rebbe was in jail. Yeah. You didn't know that?
Basically every Rebbe.
You didn't know that? The Rebbe was in jail. Yeah, 100%. As a matter of fact, they say a young Baal Tshuva comes to Chabad Yeshiva, and he calls his parents, and his parents like, "How's it going?" He said, "Yeah, we had a big farbrengen, a big celebration last night." They said, so she said, "What happened?" So he says, "Oh, on this day, the founder of Chabad was let out of prison." Okay, whatever, very nice. She calls a couple days later, right? Why? Oh, this is the third Rebbe was let out of prison.
They're all let out around the same time,
right? And after 3 times, the mother's like, "What type of movement do you join?" They were all thrown in prison. Every single one of the Chabad Rebbes went to prison. Most of them went in some severe fashion. The only one that didn't go in a real severe fashion was really the Rebbe. Rabbi Soloveitchik, actually the founder or one of the founding members of YU, actually says that he was, they were friendly. Rabbi Soloveitchik was very friendly with the Rebbe. And he gets a phone call one day on Purim. He gets a phone call, and the police are on the phone, and they said, "Well, we have a guy in prison," and that we asked him, who should you call? And he gave us your number that we should call you to help him get out of prison. Right? And so they asked him, who is it? Who was it? So they told Rabbi Soloveitchik, this guy Menachem Mendel,
Chabad House in Central Booking.
So he right away ran down there and he asked what happened. Turns out the Rebbe on Purim, he got drunk. And what does the Rebbe do when he gets drunk? What does the Rebbe do when he gets drunk?
Dance.
Yeah, that too, but the Fabrings. So what did he do? He got drunk. And he went out to the middle of France, the middle of, wherever it was. And he stood up and he just started talking and sharing ideas and information. He was just like philosophy. He was just like preaching to the public. And he was so interesting that people were constantly coming over and they kind of got glued to his talks. And like all of a sudden there was like this crowd of few hundred people listening to what the Rebbe had to say. The Rebbe was talking, and he was just talking and giving over whatever he wanted to give over. And what happened is that the police came and they arrested him. They thought he was making some type of illegal protest without he didn't have any license. He didn't ask permission, and he's just making an illegal gathering in the middle of the street, right? And so that's why the Rebbe got thrown in jail.
Maybe it's a decree from heaven.
And they say that Rabbi Soloveitchik, when Rabbi Soloveitchik basically told the cops, okay, today's Purim, maybe he's a little drunk. Anyways, the cops let him go. And on the way out, Rabbi Soloveitchik looks at the Rebbe. They say this is what he says. And he looks at the Rebbe and he says, now you're going to be the Chabad Rebbe. And he said, why? He said, because every Chabad Rebbe went to jail. Now you went to jail, you could be Chabad Rebbe. They said that he actually told. They said he told that. They said that he told that to the Rebbe. Yeah.
So he told that to the Rebbe.
Now you could be the Rebbe. You were thrown in jail. Although he wasn't thrown in jail when he was a Rebbe, unlike the others.
There's another story that when Rebbe was in France, he used to go to a Sadmar Rebbe who went to off the derek, not the Rebbe, like a Sadmar Chassid.
Yeah.
And it says that a young man, a Chabad Chassid, always used to come in the morning, put on tefillin with him. Yeah. Knock on his door every morning, and after a while, the Sadmar Chassid got fed up with it, and he started putting on tefillin. And then this person on the gem video said, "Do you know who that was?" I was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When he was everything the Rebbe.
Let me tell you something. If you want to know what the Rebbe did before he was Rebbe, it was pretty much what Chabad can do today. But
soil
like,
and everything.
it's very interesting how the Rebbe did these things even before Chabad
Yeah.
did it as a thing. It was like the Rebbe did it.
Wow.
All right, where are we? All right, we're going to learn one more piece and then we're going to break. Okay, good. 5 things Rabbi Akiva told Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai when Rabbi Akiva was in jail. Chavaz b'beis ha'asurim. Amar lo, he told him, Rebbe,
Teach me Torah.
Lamdeni Torah. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai told Rabbi Akiva, please teach me Torah. Yeah, he wanted him to learn Torah. Teach me Torah. Amar loi, Rabbi Akiva said back to him, Eini melamed. He says, no, Rabbi Akiva refuses to teach Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai Torah. He says, no, I'm not teaching you Torah. Yeah. Amar loi, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says back to Rabbi Akiva, Im ein atam lamdeni, if you do not teach me Torah, Ani oimer leYochai Abba, I will tell my father Yochai, who happened to have connections to the government, and I will basically
Turn over you to the government.
Yeah. He basically threatened. He threatened.
Rabbi actually threatened you.
He threatened Rabbi Akiva to go to the government and tell something about him. He threatened him. He threatened him. Teach me Torah or else.
Oh, I think that's what we should do. Rabbi
Yeah.
Kopel?
Ask Bashoy line.
Huh? That's what he said. That's a pretty powerful thing. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai threatened Rabbi Akiva. If you want to say, he threatened his life even. Right? He threatened to basically tattle on him to the government if he didn't teach him Torah. Yeah. It says over here in the Marsha that what was he going to tell the government? Rabbi Akiva was in jail because he was teaching Torah. So what was he going to tell the government? So Marsha said he had information about Rabbi Akiva that would have made the government even more angry than him teaching Torah in the Marsha. Yeah. He threatened him. Amar loi beni. Rabbi Akiva looks back at Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and says, my son, more than the calf wants to drink, the cow wants to feed, which means the cow has a need to feed its child, right? And that need is even greater than the need for the child to eat, meaning it feels more.
Why Rabbi Akiva is scared?
Yeah.
He's a tzaddik.
In other words, Rabbi Akiva is telling Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, more than you want to learn, I want to teach.
Wow.
Yeah. Amar loi, Rabbi Akiva said back to him, Umi besakona, mahaloi egel besakona. Right? And he said, but who is in real danger? Who's in more danger, the cow or the calf?
The calf.
The calf. So even though the cow might want to feed the calf even more than the calf wants to drink, at the end of the day, if the cow doesn't drink, if the cow doesn't feed, it's fine, right? It might hurt, it might bother, it might not be able to express its inner desire, but it will be fine. However, what happens if the calf doesn't drink? It's going to die. So basically, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is basically telling Rabbi Akiva, yeah, you might want to feed me, but I'm the one in danger. Because if I don't have Torah, I'm going to be in danger. Omar Loi, Rabbi Akiva said back to him, Im bikashta lechonek, he told be'ilon gadol. He says, if you want to hang yourself, go find a tree and hang yourself. In other words, he's saying you're trying to commit suicide. Right? You want to commit suicide by studying Torah with me in prison? Go commit suicide on a tree. Don't do it.
Here is a bit different.
Yeah.
This proverb means that if one wants others to accept what he has to say, he should attribute his statement to a great man. Like tall tree, I think it represents a great man. And hanging means he's like trying to attribute himself to a great man. You want to read this?
There's a commentary that says that, but the simple translation is not like that. Yeah. There is there is a way of saying that that he's actually now teaching him, right? He's saying if you want people to accept your words, don't say that you say it that some great man said it, right? Don't say that in your own name, say it in the name of a great man. Yeah. And by the way, you see this a lot in a lot of great works. For example, the Tanya basically, if you read the introduction, the Tanya basically claims that he didn't make anything up. He just took statements from other people and put it together, compiled it in a way where you could understand it, and it's super brilliant and super accepted, right?
Yeah.
Good. I think we're going to leave the last little bit for tomorrow. But yeah, we had the situation where Rabbi Akiva was in prison. And since Rabbi Akiva was in prison, he hesitated to teach Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai until Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai threatened to tattle on him to the government.
There's a different reason why he didn't want to teach him yet. He was trying to teach him.
I don't want to say this in a how should I say, disrespectful way, but if you know the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the end, somebody tattled on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to the government.
Oh.
So it could be, this might be the reason, because he threatened his teacher to tattle on the government, therefore somebody tattled on him. Could be.
That's the flavor of it.
Yeah. However, when somebody threatened to tattle on him, he had to hide for 13 years. And by hiding in 13 years, he gained the most that he's ever gained from anything else.
Oh.
In other words, that because he threatened his teacher for the right reasons, he got his path to his own wisdom came through that itself being accomplished.
Hashem all day. They go from the
Brilliant.
Chatzonius
Brilliant.
to the Paninius Ratzon.
Brilliant. Good. Anyways, we're going to end there, and we'll open the floor to any questions. Ruvain, you have a question? No questions? How are you? If anybody has questions online, you could ask. It's live. Yeah. You can ask questions live right now. And if you want to know our QR code to join our WhatsApp group, I just put it on there. You can join our WhatsApp group by clicking that button, right? In the QR code. If you want to subscribe, you should subscribe. You should do all that stuff. Subscribe, click the bell, the whole mice. Right? If you join our WhatsApp group, you will be notified, Bezrat Hashem, when we have, I put it on, when we have class. And no, we're not asking for donations just yet. If you really want to make a donation, you can get a hold of me, WhatsApp, Facebook, Hulu. You can make a donation, but we're not really asking at the moment for donations because we're so flippin' rich. We were just like loaded. Yeah, that was sarcastic, by the way. But yeah, there's a time and place for everything. All right. Any other questions? We'll have questions for online, for over here. No.